So we're going to assume that their earnings are going to remain at exact same level at $10 per share. Next year it's going to be $10. 10 years from now it's going to be $10. 100 years now from it's going to be $10. So this is a thought experiment. It's not something that we predict. Under that assumption, it's going to take you 55 years to be paid back for your NVIDIA investment, and it's going to take you 33 years to be paid back for your Microsoft investment. So if you know nothing else, and you're naive enough to invest under this ceteris paribus thought experiment, Microsoft is much cheaper for you, right? The trouble is, I mean, one of two things are possible, maybe both. One of two things. You guys on the Zoom don't see, I showed 3 fingers instead of 2, because I like pacing during the class. And Microsoft is really undervalued for some stupid reason. There's a hype on the AI. People are buying the AI stuff. Maybe they're stupid. I don't know. Or they're actually paying money for something else. Remember that thought experiment that earnings are going to remain exactly the same over the next millennia. That is the thought experiment. In Latin, ceteris paribus means everything else being the same. But as I had an econometrics teacher when I was doing PhD in econ back at Boston College, he was always into Latin quite a bit. He says, "This is econometrics. In econometrics and finance, ceteris is rarely paribus." That was his joke. So ceteris is rarely paribus, which means things rarely stay the same. It is a nice thought experiment. It's a nice teaching tool, but that's it. Now, even if that wasn't an issue, this number is backward looking. We call it the trailing PE for a reason. It is based on the trailing numbers. You know, I stayed married for almost 20 years. I was with the same lady for 30 years before we split. In marriage or in a long-term relationship, the question is always, what have you done for me lately? And especially whatever you have done for them doesn't matter. What's most important is what are you going to do for them? You know, you've done a lot of good things for me, but that happened. That's it, done. We're past that. Microsoft made people a lot of money in the past, right? But what is this? Microsoft is not my son. Whatever they've done for me, even if I had been an investor of Microsoft since 1984 when they went first public, if you had put $1 into Microsoft, it probably would have been over $20,000 now. But trust me, if you've seen, in fact, I'm going to show you this picture. If you've seen the picture of the Microsoft crowd in 1978, I don't think you would have invested into these guys. Images. Oh, there it is. I mean, independent of this being 70s, come on, man. Look at these people. You probably recognize Bill Gates, you know, at the very bottom, all the way to the left of the screen. Who would invest with these guys? I mean, look at the guy left on the top row. He does look like one of the porn actors back in 1970s, Ron Jeremy. Okay, why would I invest with these guys? But people who did made crap loads of money. Not necessarily they had great products. Microsoft, Bill Gates is a better businessman than he's the tech leader. Don't get me wrong, he's no slouch, but he has a better business acumen. One of the first things they've done, they were doing small projects until 1982. In 1982, IBM could not resist people's demands that they wanted personal computers. That's where the name PC comes from. Because other companies like Apple was doing it, but Apple was a startup. Those days, there was a company called Digital Corporation. They were doing it, but they were all kind of sort of esoteric stuff. The serious stuff was done in mainframes. You had a terminal. From that terminal, you typed commands to the mainframe. You ran programs, and that was about it. So and IBM's business was pretty much mainframes. Just to keep people happy, they said, okay, we're going to do a PC. And they were so unserious about it, they didn't even want to write an operating system on that. They hired somebody. They ended up hiring Microsoft. Why? Because Microsoft had written an operating system for one of the early versions of PCs. It was the Atari computer, where you actually played video games those days. It was an 8-bit machine. These machines are now 64-bit, but the IBM's chips are going to be 16-bit, which means over 100 times much faster, by the way. 8 to 16 doesn't mean twice as fast. It's logarithmic. So they hired him, and they knew that they had experience writing an operating system, because unlike writing a code, you write the operating systems in the so-called assembly language or the machine language. It is one of the ugliest programming things that you can do, especially back then. Nowadays, it's easier, relatively speaking. You know what Microsoft did? They wrote a program that told IBM PC that you are an Atari 8-bit machine. It is called an emulator. Okay? When the computer turns on, that code runs and it says, oh, I'm just a little Atari 8-bit machine. And they already had the code for that. Done. They put it in. Business wise, it is great because they didn't have to. I mean, look at these guys. Do you really think that they were going to stay for hours and write a new code in assembly language? No. This is late 70s, early 80s. They were going to party. Okay. And this being, Northern California, trust me, there was a lot of partying going on. And all of that was before AIDS became an issue. So parties were wild, independent of your personal proclivities. Parties were wild everywhere. The trouble is, Microsoft still has that uh, business culture. So that's why I'll give you an example. When we do square root in Excel sheets, we write sqrt, right, as a function. If I want to take the square root of something in VBA, which is the Visual Basic, okay, the name of the function is sqr. You know why? More than likely, the person who wrote the code for the spreadsheet was different from the person who wrote the codes for VBA. And those people did not talk to each other. They probably realized that after it was done, they said, we don't care. Let them worry about it. If Apple actually had done something like that, that would never have been an issue. Steve Jobs would have fired people for letting something like that to go to consumer. But business-wise, they've done well. But whether or not they're going to do as well is a separate issue. Again, what they've done in the past doesn't matter. One of the first things we can do is to calculate so-called forward PE. Forward PE is price now divided by the expected 12-month earnings in the next 12 months. Those are typically estimated by the analysts, so they have access to them. For example, if you want to calculate it yourself, go to Microsoft FinanceYahoo.com, go to analysis, and they have earnings estimate for the current year. And Microsoft's fiscal calendar ends at the end of September. That means that's 48 analysts on average estimate that Microsoft is going to make $13.16 per share for the 12-month period that's going to end in September 2025. Similarly, for the 12-month period that's going to end at the end of September 2026, they expect 1507. All right. NVIDIA has similar numbers, but since Yahoo people actually, instead of working with a 9-month number, they have access to all the estimates. So under statistics, let's find the forward PE. That's 3155. Okay. There's my pen. So these are TTM, so-called FPE, forward PE. For Microsoft is 3155. Let's look at the same number for my beloved company. That pretty much paid for 1.5 years of college for my younger son. I mean, it hasn't paid it yet, but I made that kind of money from it. That's 3257. Now the difference is not that stark now, is it? If I had made this calculation using 2 years worth of stuff, I would not be surprised that NVIDIA would actually be ahead, or their 2-year PE. I mean, in my upper level class, they actually calculate something like that. Their 2-year PE would have been higher, would have been lower. Why? Because I am no longer assuming that earnings are going to remain at their current levels. I mean, they're in the past, so it doesn't matter. Even this assumes that earnings are going to remain at their level that we're going to see over the next 12 months. And just to give you an idea, let's look at the growth rates.